Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 332nd film from 2021. It's the Indonesian musical romantic comedy called The Heartbreak Club, or Sobat Ambyar. It's directed by Charles Gozali and stars Bhisma Mulia, Denira Wiraguna, Dede, Satria, and Emil, Kusumo. I'm Jesse, and I'm your host. Thanks for joining me today. As always, if you don't want any spoilers, you haven't seen this film and you're interested in checking it out, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on. This is an international film, so I'm guessing a lot of you haven't seen it, but that's all good. We're going to get into it because we start the film off with the show with the Fast Flicks, which is a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one is about a man who is struggling through heartbreak and wonders if he will ever be able to live life again. Oh, dramatic. So dramatic. A bit like this film. How did this one end up on Netflix? This international film's often hard to find anything about it. I guess that the film is about heartbreak, and that's in the title, and it uses the songs of this famous Indonesian singer called Dede Kempot. So a quote is that many Indonesians miss the beautiful ballads of Dede Kempot and long for this film to be released, the director said in a statement. So he's apparently known as the godfather of broken hearts, and unfortunately Dede, he passed away of cardiac arrest in Central Java in May of 2020, just before the release of the film. Prior to his death, he did say that he hoped the film would help fans further understand the meanings behind traditional songs. He said, "At least those who are non-Javanese will understand better why people cry when they listen to my songs, just like when people listen to Julio Iglesias songs," he said. So comparing himself to quite a big name in the music scene. Again, this is, I think I said this last week, there is no English dub for this film. For those that like to watch films in dub, I mean, I don't, you shouldn't, so that's all that. But just in case you're wondering, there is no dub for this film available. This did hit Netflix worldwide on the 14th of January 2021. It was filmed in Jakarta in Indonesia, and it did pretty well across Indonesian award ceremonies. It had 7 wins and a further 14 nominations. These were mainly at the Indonesian Movie Actor Awards and the Maya Awards. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? I'm holding back on my thoughts. We'll get there soon. There's nothing on Rotten Tomatoes for this one. There's nothing on Metacritic for this one, so it can only go off IMDb and Letterboxd. So on IMDb, it sits at a solid 6.2 out of 10. That is only on 229 ratings, so not a lot of ratings. The same with Letterboxd. It sits at a 3.1 out of 5, which is very solid, but only been rated by 601 people and been logged by 701. So very low. I don't think we've seen such low numbers in quite a while. What are my early thoughts for this film? All right, here we go. Like I've said, this film is about Dede and his songs, and it has a narrative that sort of loosely ties in with the lyrics. And he actually opens the film and he speaks to the camera. And like I sort of mentioned this before, he's saying his hopes that the film will be widely accepted and bring traditional songs to an international audience. I am sorry to say, this film is not for anyone outside Indonesia. It is horrible. I really struggled with this film. All right, here we go. Let's get into it. The characters. So Jat Miko, he's our main character. He is the heartbroken guy. He's the owner of a coffee shop. His parents have passed away. Their legacy was their coffee, so he's continuing that. The coffee shop is struggling with customers, struggling to pay the bills, and he's constantly dependent on his sister and his friend to help out, not only working in the cafe, but financially too. And they are the reason, I guess, why he gets heartbroken, because they push him to pursue this female customer who he sort of falls head over heels for in the end. And that's what this film is about. And her name is Saras. She is the ultimate heartbreaker. She seems to have had a relationship with pretty much most men in this film's world, possibly all of Indonesia. I don't know. There is no motivation behind any of her actions, or why she has dated so many people, or why she happens to break so many hearts. I found her as a character super frustrating. The other two characters I sort of mentioned before is Jat's sister, Anjani. She supports him in everything he does. There's sort of these weird comments throughout that maybe she's dating his best friend Kopet. I don't know. Or he's got the hots for her. I mean, she's trying to study, but she does everything to support her brother. She sells items, she pawns items, she uses her tuition fees, and she keeps this coffee shop afloat, possibly because of the resemblance to her parent, or the connection to her parents as well, but also to help him out too. And Kopet, the mate or the friend of Jat, I mean, it seems like they've been friends since high school. He's there to help him too. he's supposed to be the humorous friend who is into his best friend's sister, but is supportive, but just way over the top and too annoying for me. The director of this film, Charles Gozali, 10 directing credits, all Indonesian work. I have nothing else to say there. Let's talk about the scenes. What are some scenes that stood out, and what are some things that I want to forget? So the one thing I enjoyed in this, there are these behind the scenes photos of the making of the film over the credits at the end. They were kind of cool. I enjoyed seeing the behind the scenes, like still frame shots of how this film was put together. So that was good. But apart from that, this is going to be one of my rants. I haven't had a rant in quite a long time. Here we go. Let's rant. So the opening musical number by Dede. The crowd, they are so over the top. Ridiculous. Looked like a renter crowd. Really poor start to the film. Then we have Saras, her first entrance into this coffee shop. It's like the meet cute almost. The boys like Jat and Kopet, they're ogling her. She touches the counter of the coffee shop and sort of they make it out. So it's like really sexual. It was weird. Then she orders coffees under, instead of giving her name, because she wants to play the hard game. She's like, oh, first coffee order is a coffee order for the people of Indonesia. Come on. And then the next coffee order for the people of Congo. So lame. And then when she drinks the coffee, she has like this shocked look all over her face, Oh man. And then then like there's this scene where Jat is like hiding behind the counter, creepily watching her. Like all the wrong ways to start a film. Really poor. We get this montage like of Jat thinking about Saras. He's so impressed with her. And it includes a shot of him lying in bed, sort of caressing a coffee cup of hers. Come on. Ajani, the sister, and Kopet, the friend, they're in the coffee shop and they're pushing Jat to talk to Saras. And it's just so humorous because we've already said this coffee shop is struggling. There's no one there. There's literally no one else in the coffee shop. And it's so awkward that Sarah's sitting there with them pushing Jat towards her. It was awkward. Jat helps Saras escape from one of her exes at the coffee shop. So she, gets her into his car, drives her home. Super quick trip, and she falls asleep. And I was just like, okay, so she's fallen asleep. He doesn't wake her up. The next shot is it's night. It's pitch black, and she's still asleep in the car. Like, come on, that is super creepy. She doesn't even know this guy. There's every Jat struggles with girls. Obviously, there's every weird, sweating, shaking, awkward moment that he has around Saras to start off with. Weird. We have Jat. He takes Saras to his parents' place where he tells the story of their coffee and their death. And her response is, I envy you. He literally had just said that they were dead. But she had a single mother, but she envied him. But they were dead. So that line of dialogue just didn't work. And then she starts crying. He offers her a tissue and she says, no thanks. The tears will eventually dry up. I was laughing. And then he makes her a coffee. And she's like, oh, the spices of this coffee made my heart all warm inside. Some of the dialogue in this is horrendous. Jat and Saras, they go on this date and, they're going through a shop and they leave this shop holding hands, going up this staircase and they have this light streaming through. Like, it was just meant to be so romantic. It was hilarious. Then they drive to the countryside and it just, this happened in another Indonesian film that we did. I think it actually had rain in the title, but anyway, it just starts raining. Absolutely bucketing down, and they go out in the rain, they run around, they kiss in the rain, then he lifts his leg while they're kissing. Oh, that was so bad. Then we see that the next day she's like, I'm leaving, I'm going. So she gets on the bus and then they hold their hands on the window like a weird Titanic farewell on the wet window. That was weird. Then we get this weird interaction with all these broken-hearted people who decide that they're going to hire the coffee shop for this broken-hearted response show where they all tell their stories of heartbreak. And they talk about being abused and used. And then there's this fat guy who tells his story about girls tucking their mobile phones into his tummy to carry them around. And that's how he gets used. What on earth? Oh my God. Jat, he goes to find Saras and he sees that she's with this new guy called Abdul. And she tells him that, this new guy, and hasn't told him that she's finished with him. And this Abdul guy, she tells him that Abdul understands what she wants. And you can't force feelings and you have to follow your heart. I thought it was hilarious because as an audience we don't know what she wants, and then she's like, Jat's like, you're hurting me, and then this was so bad, and then he bought her this big teddy bear, and then he runs down the street with this huge teddy bear, and then just randomly some random start kicking the absolute crap out of him in the street. Poor guy. But I didn't feel sympathy for him at all. Then we see that, he's trying to deal with his heartbreak, and his sister and his friend, they try to set him up on this date with this woman who appeared about 30 to 40 years older than him, and just this weird loose unit that was probably meant to be funny. Didn't work. And then Saras keeps coming backwards and forwards into Jat's life, and she's like, make me a promise, come to my graduation, because Abdul's not going to be there. So he goes to the graduation, gives her some flowers, and then Abdul rocks up, and then she just throws the flowers back at Jat, and then he just cracks it and runs away and cries. Very funny. Sorry, I'll keep going. So Jack gets home, he's really upset. He's an absolute prick to his sister, and then her response is, well, maybe I'm not your sister anymore. Sorry, I think biologically you still are. Jack finally decides that he's going to say goodbye to Saras. And, she offers him an invite to her wedding to Abdul, says, I'm not going to go to your wedding. He finally cuts ties, and then she walks out, and he just cries in the middle of the coffee shop, and he goes to the floor, and then everyone in the coffee shop comes around him and hugs him and starts singing into a song. Oh my God. And finally, the final thing, like the final song of Dede, the sound quality was horrible. I'm not sure if they used like this old recording and put it over the top, but they actually had the guy there, so I don't understand why they didn't get him to sing the song. It just felt really weird to end the film as well. So what's the film trying to say? Themes, ideas. Obviously, this film, it's about broken hearts. Like, how do you mend them? How do you end the suffering of love? And music plays a big part in this film too. So music and song can help define moments in life. And Jat, I've got to say, this is about him learning to love himself or to value himself and understand who he is as a person too. But unfortunately, did not like the way that they tried to do this. What did I take away from this film? Nothing. There's very little to like about this film. I can't recommend this. So if you have got this far, you might as well turn off because I'm nearly done. Questions, ponderings, ideas about this film. Just one thing. Like Sarah, I've spoken about, don't understand her motivations. Like, she goes off to, go get this job, and she ends up with her boss. Like, why did she fall for her boss? We don't know her. Like, was it to get her job? Is that why she's with him? Because based on what we see from her as a character, I wouldn't be surprised. And I find it's hard to sympathize with a character who's in love with such a horrible person if that's her real motivations. Anyway, I'm ready to wrap this up. We give the film a rating out of 5. For me, technically the film's fine. It looks okay. But everything else is a complete disaster. I never want to have to think about this film again, or the time that I wasted watching it as well. Giving this half a star out of 5. Very ordinary for me. We're on socials. We're on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, now known as X. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Give us a follow. Give us a like. The social media question for this week was do you drink coffee? Because this is obviously about coffee, this film. I don't know. Coffee's a weird thing for me. I don't mind a coffee, but then I feel like I don't want another one for a long time. Yeah. Anyone, how many cups a day do you drink? What's the go with coffee? I don't get it. Other than that, we're back again next week. We do have another international film next week. This one's from Brazil. It's from 2021. It's a comedy drama called Double Dad, or in Portuguese, Pai em Dobro. It's directed by Chris D'Amato and stars Mesa Silva, Eduardo Moscovis, and Marcelo Medici. That's what we've got next week. Another international film. 2021. I think this is still a lot of pandemic times, isn't it? So we're probably going to have a lot of international film. This is where Netflix have bought a lot of them up to put on their service. So if you're keen on that one, give it a watch before next week. As always, thanks for joining me, and I will see you then.